So, turn that heater off. The other day, there was a question that was posed by someone that I'm subscribed to, Miss Felicia. And she wanted to know if, do you feel like me? Let's talk about it. And, that's a good question, especially when you have to take into account how other people feel, when you take their feelings into consideration. How do you feel? And I took a look at the video, and she had made some good points in the video as far as why things are the way they are. Why does it seem like the wicked are always the recipients of love, and those that love are always the recipients of hate? Why do it seem as though religious people are less spiritual and spiritual people are less embraced by religious people? And that's something that we have to go and give thought to. And that's the thing about it. You influence the thought of others by asking certain things, by putting that information or those questions out. So that those are the ways that you influence, thought. So, when I gave my input, it was elaborative about why things are the way that they are. And you have to understand that we all have the ability to influence each other's actions, reactions, and our inactions, the things that we don't act to. So you would think that because you're not reaching people, that you don't have the influence that you have, and then you would have others that have a lot of reach. You would believe that they have influence, but there's a big the distinction between influencers, or those that have influence, or those that create thought or influence thought that can produce change, or that can produce a reaction, as opposed to those that are shepherds and they coach you into a certain way of thinking or a certain way of behaving. That's what you would call shepherds. They are you are under the impression that these people are influencers, but the influencers are the people that normally interact with you. And if you're one that are attentive to the request of others, their their input could influence something that you talk about, like this video that I'm producing right now. This is the reactions of someone influencing this thought, and this thought can influence the thought of others. So we had the other day, someone requested the name of an author that I spoke about in one of my videos. And I was able to relay that information to them. So when I received that video that I created was influenced by somebody else's input, that if he didn't comment or he didn't suggest these particular authors that I check out, then that person wouldn't have been able to seek the that author or request information about that author. See, that's one thing that I wanted to point out with Willow creation. She stated here, you know, she stated that when I made the video about, family members should be brought to justice and be held accountable for their actions, as opposed to them just skipping over the process, and that not having the effect that it would need to have, especially on the growth of humanity. So what she stated was the focus should not only be on justice, but on opening our eyes to the healing that is necessary on earth. It is opening our eyes to the evil and horrible things happening that, as I said before, with which we are all connected. We have a connection. So, as a collective, these things hold us back as a whole in our evolution, as far as us advancing as a unit of people, as a collective group of people. They hinder our growth. So, just as they say in a group, you are only as strong as the weakest, we are only as high vibrational as our lowest vibration. So, those at the lowest of the lows are what we actually base our level of development on. If we're not all developing collectively, we have to look at what's keeping us from developing, and it's normally those that are at the low that's keeping us at the low. So, I stated that in the video about the homeless that I created. It was a video called About the Homeless, where you have the super rich and they believe that they're super rich and doing well off. But as long as there's people that's not doing good, then nobody's doing good. If you're doing A1 and you have all of everything, the abundance in the world, guess what? You're you're just as well off as that homeless person right there on the street. So until we combat address certain situations and come up with solutions for them, then we can't look at ourselves as high and mighty, because we're still low and of the lows, because we are here, but there's people there. Is that our responsibility? Yeah, it is, because they're a part of humanity, and you're a human being. Unless you're something else, then that's a different story. Now, if you're from, Neptune or somewhere, and you come here, then you could look down on them like, huh, poor Earthlings, still can't get it together. But as long as you're from the same planet, the same species, and you have something in common with them, and you're uncommon from them, then you have to, question your level of humanity. And that's basically what this is conveying here. See, Willow is a poet and an author. So this is one that creates thought and is able to influence thought. This is what people are capable of doing. But here, I brought this up. Now you do know that you got rid of all this earth junk around your neck. Got rid of that a long time ago. When I went out on my trip to Philly, I had to pawn all that stuff, get rid of it. And if you want me to show you my receipts for it that I've never went to go recoup, then that's you're able to do that. But all this stuff was, expensive stuff, but it is not more important than people. Now, you don't see it. You don't see it. You know what I'm saying? And everybody is somebody. And everything is something. Nothing is nothing, and nobody is nobody. This is how you become truly empathetic, how you can rationalize and reason and share how a person feels. This creates the feelings for others, to identify with others. This is why you're bringing this topic to the forefront that needs to be discussed, because this took courage for a person, to come out and ask these questions, and these questions being things that needs to be a general conversation amongst people. Do you feel like I feel? Well, how is it that you feel? Like, nothing is right. Everything is all wrong. And if you don't feel like that, then there's a reason why you don't feel like that. Maybe because things aren't you aren't living in that reality of things going wrong, or things not being right and exact, or it's unjust, or only fair for certain people and unfair for others. Then the that may not be your case. You may be the recipients of the unfair treatment in your favor, as opposed to those that are being unfairly treated and everything is not going in their favor. So you want to question, is God a good God? Because why would, a good God allow, wicked people to reign supreme? If God is a good God, then why is all the sickness and all the violence and all of, you know, these establishments that's established still established when they need to come to an end? So, you elaborated on that, you know, and that's the thing. And when speaking about, evil systems and wicked systems that need to be brought to justice, we would think that it would be in the form of the court of law, but justice for a corrupt system would be people that are incorruptible, especially a system that wants control over people. It would be the loss of control of people. That would be justice for them, where they want to dictate the actions of people. They would lose that ability to dictate the actions of people. So that would be justice for them, not coming from the court of law. It would actually come through a moral and spiritual stance that's against, that opposes their system or their established ways of doing things, and just turning a blind eye to them. Like, there's things going on in the world right now that they want you to focus on. If the people was to lose focus and not pay attention to those things, that would be justice on them, because this is the way to keep you trapped into their reality, by creating a reality for you to be trapped into. This creating what you again, to this day, to this very day, I have never seen the Matrix. So I can't tell you anything about the Matrix, but what I do know, that it's something that they place you inside of that you have to get out of. It's the only thing I know about it. And when it's time for me to watch it, I may, sit down and watch it, but to this day don't know what is in there. I know Neo, I know Morpheus, I know, and this comes from um keeping an open ear and being observant to what others say about it. But as far as me giving you, a scene by scene explanation of what it is, I don't know. But it's the thing is to keep you inside of this reality and keep it perpetual. And as long as you're in this perpetual reality, that control is still over you. They still have control over you. Now, what I do understand about it is what I elaborated in the conversation, what I was able to give her as my response to that. you know when, from a spiritual perspective, you you gave them a understanding of what you understand. So I made my understanding understood to why things are skewered the way that they are, why they are distorted. It's because when we look at things from a spiritual perspective, we have to understand duality. The balance of life allows both good and evil to coexist. And these are opposites in every aspect. Opposites. Every aspect of it. What's right for them, what's right for them is wrong for them. What's wrong for them is right to them. So when we're thinking about duality, you're looking at things from the checkerboard or the chessboard, how whatever game that they play. It's all about surviving a game and or playing the game. And some of us that are good, as you stated, we can't do wrong by people. And so it is harder for those with like minds to band together that it is for those that can do wrong than it is for those that can do wrong by people. So it's harder for, me and Felicia to get together and conspire against, you know, other people to do good things. We can collaborate together, but as far as us scheming comes with underhanded tactics and things that are deceptive in order to get their their way. But as far as you and I, we're not going to bend any kind of laws to make anything established. So that's why I stated that it's easier for those that can do wrong by people to place themselves in position. And not only that, but to conspire together because of personal interests of others. Would you help me do this? You'll get this in return for that. Okay, I'm down with that. But as far as righteous people, if I was to say, yo, you want to go and rob this bank? I know we don't got money, but it's the best thing for us to do, and I'm going to break you off. A righteous person would be like, nah, I'm not, I can't do that. That, no. So even though you're a good person and might have good intentions with doing that and having money to do good with, that's still not the way that you would operate. You wouldn't allow yourself to do that because that's still doing wrong. So it's easier for those that can do wrong to band together than it is for those that can't do wrong to band together. So that's one of the things that I allowed her to know in this video, in my conversation, in my comment, you know, for those with like minds to band together, that than it is for those that can do wrong by people. So meaning we normally don't find a need to want to be controlling in others of others. So we normally won't construct an institution focused on controlling others. A need, or, you know, controlling others, scheming on others, deceiving others, etc., are all in alignment with doing wrong by people. So what we see is the result of institutions that are more about controlling others or doing wrong by people, and because they become well established, it becomes part of the norm. So both people that can't do wrong by people and those that can do wrong by people will live amongst each other and occupy these institutions, because the people that can't do wrong by people are not manipulative or scheming. They will be outperformed by those they can do wrong by, that can do wrong by people. So you'll be outperformed by those that can do wrong by people. They'll cut throat. They'll do all sorts of wicked things to get in position where you can't. You'll have to get a position honestly. But in this reality, those things are, kind of frowned upon. Don't do nothing honestly, because everything is what this guy had to manipulate votes, that guy had to buy people off, this person had to, go over there and promise them this but really don't mean that, and that person over there had to buy people all this and that and the third, but they really don't care nothing about people. They're just using, their resources to put themselves in position of power. So you will be outperformed by those people that can do wrong by people. So they will assume leadership roles that they aren't qualified for. So you will have people in leadership roles that they simply don't have the capacity to be placed in. And this is the reason, this is how you get, false leaders, because they weasel themselves in those positions and do underhanded things to get in those positions, meaning that that leadership role requires the inability to do wrong by people. They don't possess that ability. However, they possess the ability to want to be controlling, and with that they can do wrong by people by deceiving people that they can't do wrong by. So again, when it comes to deception, some people simply can't do it, and for that will always be outdone by those that can. So if you're not a deceptive person, and those are tactics that people use to get in positions of power, you will always be outclassed, outranked, and outperformed by people that are deceptive, because you lack that ability. Now, the ability to do right by people is not an ability that deceptive people normally have. So when they do get in that position, they aren't the ones that are doing right by people. So again, when it comes to deception, some people simply can't do it, and for that will always be outdone by those that can. So the reason why we don't see the goodness of humanity or the righteousness of churches or leaders being just is because every leadership roles come with the power to control, and those that can't do wrong by people will be wronged by people that can do wrong by people. Man, the people that can't do wrong by people will be wronged by people that can do wrong by people. This is what you call destiny swapping, where a leader that's not supposed to lead becomes a leader. A preacher that's not supposed to preach becomes the preacher, etc. They will capitalize off of both good and bad, and because the good see the bad with them in the same boat, we just go with the flow, or of this is just the way it is, when in all actuality, good people lack the ability to scheme, cutthroat, manipulate, and deceive, etc. So those tactics will always be used to put people that can do wrong by people in positions of power. And they keep that cycle going until it is disrupted by those that can't do wrong by people you know so that cycle will always continue to be played out by those that do wrong by people. And if I'm doing wrong by people and this is the norm, I have to put another person in position that can do wrong by people in position, and when my term is over, I have to put another person in position that can do wrong by people. Up, there goes somebody that can't do wrong by people. Let's gatekeep. Let's keep that person out of the picture. Oh, there goes somebody that can do wrong by people. You come over here. Come, you want to be here? Good. Stay here and do wrong by people. You know. So that's the reason why it's a vicious cycle. Is because those that can't do wrong by people are kept out of the loop, are kept out of certain circles, and when they're placed in those circles, they disrupt those circles, you know. So, which, you know, when in all actuality, people like the people, good people lack the ability to scheme, cutthroat, manipulate, and deceive, etc. So those tactics will always be used by people that can do wrong by people in positions of power. And they keep that cycle going until it's disrupted by those that can't do wrong by people, which would be going against the norm or untying a knot. Those stories run deep in the bloodstream of humanity, where you had those that disrupt wrong and then restore what's right. You had that with when we had King Tut. We had King Tut. He untied the knot of his father, which he did to do right by the people, and then got himself targeted by those that can do wrong or wrong by people. In the story of Jesus, he was destroying the works of the devil, those that do wrong by people by misusing the law, like the people that would have the law and misuse the law. You would come and correct that. You would do away with that. You would say, hold on, bro, y'all not doing that, you know. And because of that, he became a target. So this is why we don't see God, because God is being represented by people that do wrong by people. That doesn't mean God isn't real. It means the people in the position to represent God aren't really about God. This discussion can go on for days, but the underlying fact is people that can't do wrong by people are normally wrong by people. The question is, what do we do to safeguard ourselves and prevent further being wronged by people? See, that's the question. How do we prevent ourselves from being wronged by people that do wrong by people? And, that comes along with, separating yourself from that. And you you would you would realize how easy it is to do that. Like today, I could create a whole new language, and by if I start today, by next month, a whole language can be created. You can, create a new religion today, and that religion would be, an influential thing to people that don't want to be wrong. However, if there was power in that, if it generate enough influence and people was to flock to it, it would eventually be infiltrated by people that do wrong by people, because they would want control over that religion as well. So how do we safeguard ourselves from being infiltrated by people that do wrong by people, you know? And that is where, our understanding has to you know to stem from that necessity to not be wronged by people that do people wrong, because these institutions, they are all infiltrated. They are all institutions that they are being ran by those people, by people that have done wrong. This is the reason why we don't have, good and just preachers, because preachers that really can preach, that preach with sincerity, they are normally outcast, and they're replaced by those in positions of the opposite, that want the title but aren't of the title. They want to be it, but they are not it, you know and that's, the part of the discussion. That's part of the discussion, and that's why things are the way that they are. So when we do have, certain things, we would see, um we have this right here, where there's the shepherds, the false shepherds. You have to understand what, shepherd is. A shepherd is one um that sways the flock, that leads the flock. And you have the sheep herding, and then you have those that coach you into a direction. But these would be false shepherds. He would be one that you look at because he's in the public eye and of um a high social status, that he's a reliable source. But again, you had Felicia, who not too much in the public, but has more influence over, you know, a person's, reason why you would have to seek things out like that and give give input, as opposed to someone like, this, this person millionaire, or I don't know what he got. I really don't know. But it's stated here.
Why does it have to be like this?
The most successful people in the world are the most selfish people in the world. Because before you can take care of everyone else, you have to have an abundance in which you took care of yourself with first.
Absolutely.
How can you have a lot to give if you don't have a lot that you kept for yourself?
Right.
You have to create abundance to give.
Whenever you get on an airplane, they always tell you the same thing. Secure your own oxygen mask before helping others. Because let's keep it a buck. If you're suffocating financially, emotionally, or physically, you're not going to be very useful to anybody. The harsh truth is, the people that do the most for everybody else usually have the least. Don't be out here giving away what you haven't truly earned yet. The homie Sauce Walker hit the nail on the head. You can't pour from an empty cup. The truth is, selfishness is good when it's strategic.
That is not the truth at all. Selfishness isn't good. That's self-preservation. Self-preservation is is when it's necessary, when there's scarcity and you would require for yourself. That doesn't mean harbor things for yourself. That doesn't mean take all the resources and outcast people. No, long as I have, this is good. This is enough food for the week. You don't have no food. Here's food for 2 days. Now I have food enough for um 5 days, and that person only has, but I still have, you have, they have, but it's still me being preserving of myself, things for myself. It's not like I'm taking, here's everything, I don't have nothing. Oh man, no one is going to give to me, that's a form of self-preservation. But again, you would have people that are not supposed to even be giving you any kind of wisdom, giving you wisdom. And you know that's not hitting the nail on the head. That is what you would call selfishness. Selfishness isn't good. What the Bible says, you know about selfish. First, you have to understand that um Sauce Walker, first and foremost, you before you could um you know you use righteous judgment. Always use righteous judgment. When if you're going to judge, you don't just say, man, he got his money and let him do whatever he want to do with it. That's his money. And then you're right. No one's obligated to do anything, but if you have a set of principles that you are to live by, then you are obligated. You have a certain obligation. you know because one thing that was stated was, you have, because it's religious affiliation, where it stated, you know, it stated here. That's why I'm trying to tell you. A lot of people join things, and they don't join it with the understanding of what they're joining. So these are blind followers of the blind, because it is written that if someone says that they believe in Christ, but they do not keep his commandments, they are a liar. Now, I mean, they are a liar. So what we have is liars and people that are not walking in truth, being looked at as people with reliable information, and we shouldn't look to liars as a reliable source of for information. So here it says, and follows the Christian religion. He his ethnicity is Afro American, and he identifies as Christian. So some people identify as certain things, but they lack the 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 makeup of of Christianity. They lack the makeup of it. You know, this is someone that is you know they have distraction agents and people that is trying to keep you from you know explaining and expressing yourself. Especially when you things need to be expressed. Um, that's my neighbor. Let me see what they need. I'll go down there in a few minutes. So that's one thing that you wanted to share. They are coddlers. Coddlers of a system. They placate not you but a system, and keep a system that's set up with selfishness, and they they placate those that deal with greed, and it justify the means of you know storing or receiving abundance, and where it's biblical, where they tell you that don't store anything up on earth where rust and moth get to, but store your treasures up in heaven. Store it up in spiritual riches and spiritual richness. Therefore, you would always have an abundance of that. That's where your abundance is. But when it comes to earth junk, you know, all of that stuff is able to get taken away, to get looted, to get stolen, and all of these things, and it creates envy. But what the Bible says about selfishness, that's contrary to what Sauce Walker says about selfishness. So for anybody that's you know um up into the Bible, religiously into the Bible, or one that believes in the Bible, or Christ, these are, you know, what it means when it comes to, selfishness. What selfishness, what the scripture says on being selfish. That's contrary to what, Sauce Walker says about selfishness. You know what I mean? What Sauce Walker says about selfishness, where, you know, being selfish is good, double exclamation marks. But what does the Bible say, you know, about selfishness? But what does Christ say about keeping his commandments? Let's see. If you love Christ, if you love Christ, keep his commandments. Don't just come online and, Jesus is the only way, Jesus this and Jesus that and Jesus this. Keep Christ's commandments if you love him. You know, two commandments he gave you. This is you understand, two commandments he gave you now. But what else does he say? If anyone says I know him but does not keep his commandment, he is a liar, and the truth is not in him. The commandments. Keep his commandments. So again, love your neighbor as you love yourself, and love God with all your heart, your mind, your body, your soul. Love God with every fiber of your bone. These are the commandments. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you got a chain, my neighbor should have a chain. Oh, I got 5 rings on. I got 9 neighbors. Every neighbor should have a ring. Every neighbor should have a ring if you're into that. You know what I mean? Your material possessions shouldn't be more valuable than your neighbor, because your material possessions aren't more valuable than you. Get it? That's why it was nothing for your boy Yoshi to say, man, I'm going to do something about Philly, man. I ain't doing nothing right now. I got a vehicle. Let me go out here, because you do that in your neighborhood. You go out in your community and clean up in your community, and you would do that in the next community. Anywhere you go and see, anywhere you see it, that's what would happen, But if you see that, there's people over there that's being exploited, and you have the ability to go out there and be some assistance to them people, but don't, then you know your you have to question your empathy and how you empathize with people. In fact, the other day, this is funny. The other day I was walking up the street, and somebody said something to me from across the street. It was like this Mexican guy. I don't know what he was, Mexican, Peru. I don't know what he was, but he said something. He was holding like looked it to me like a scooter, like one of those little small scooters. Like he was holding something, and he was screaming from across the street, pointing at me. And I could have, stopped and addressed him. I could have been like, "Hold on, dog. What did you say? You talking to me, you know, but you know better than that, because one thing could have led to another, then one thing could have led to another, and another could have led to another, but you don't let people, provoke you. And that's one of the things that you learn through, trial and error and patience, and knowing that your patience is um something that you have over you. And because you have that, you're in control of your wrath. Wrath doesn't control you, what patience does. You know what I mean? So I just kept walking up the street because I'm going to get my cat some cat food or some cat treats, you know. So I walks up the street. Mm, oh yeah, all right, bro. Whatever, man. You know, and that's what you would call the devil, because they wanted to get you to wrath and lash out, and yo, you talking to me, you know. But um, when I came back, that same guy was laying out flat on the ground, face down on the ground, laid out. You know, you laid out, like out, out, face flat on the ground, and I'm watching cars, drive past. I'm watching people walk past. So I stop, and he's on the side of the street. Let me see if I can give you some direction. You know, let's see. Here we go. 363 on Passaic Street. We're on Passaic Street. So where Cuz is, all right, Cuz right here. Cuz is right here where these people are. And I'm across the street, walking up the street, and he's pointing at me and screaming at me, and you know what I mean. So I could have said, "Hold on, bro, dog, who you talking to me, dog?" You know what I mean? But I just kept it moving, kept moving. You know what I mean, kept it up the street, kept going. You know what I mean, the Family Dollar's down here, you know. So when I came back, going back towards my house is this way. So he's laid out right here, just right here. This car's driving past, I mean, and I'm like, hold on, you know, I can't not leave. I cannot walk. There's people walking by, just minding their business, just walking by, and I cross the street and I make sure Cuz is good. So I get him up. He's bleeding. His whole face is bleeding, and I picks him up, and the thing that he was holding was a cane. He was holding a cane, so he must have fell. And I started to walk, you know, up the street, and the police department is right here. And there's places where you can sit right here. I was going to sit him right here, but it was a guy that was right here that said if he goes over there, he was going to get locked up, which, you don't want to get anybody in any kind of trouble. He could have been an immigrant, who knows, you know. And so I wanted to sit him down right here, but the guy that was here, I had sat him down right here, and I happened to have um a cloth in my bag. So as I'm walking, all he kept saying was "effing people, man, effing people," you know. And I was like, "Yo, calm down, man, calm down, Poppy, calm down." So when um I sat him down here, he was holding on to my bag. You know what I mean? So as he was holding on to my bag, I'm like, "Yo, bro," he thought my bag was his bag, and I'm letting him know, "No, your bag is on your back." So he reached on his back to check his bag. Then you know, I told the guy, to make sure he was good. But I ended up giving him a clean cloth, and I had the cloth because I had my switch in my bag, and I didn't want the switch to get scratched up. So I didn't have my switch in the bag at that time, but I still had the cloth. So that cloth was brand new cloth. It came in handy. He needed it for all that blood that was gushing out of his face. But I say that to say that, that's how you understand, the goodness of God, because it's not in all of us. The goodness of God is not in all of us. There's good people, so don't say that the whole world is wicked and only you. There's people that are assistive, then there's people that simply will walk by you. There's people that, care about their neighbors, cares about the welfare of others, and there's people that, when it's convenient, they care about the welfare of others. You know, so, um, you know, this is one thing that I like about me. One of the things that I love about me, the ability to do that. And it only indicates that because I have that ability, that, that's the ability of God. That's what God would do. That's what Christ would do if Christ walked this earth. Christ wouldn't be walking up the street and walk by and see somebody over here sprawled out on the ground and just continue walking about his business. Christ would come over there and tend to that person. You know what I mean? So you have to understand what it means to, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Would you allow or want yourself to be sprawled out on the ground and no one come to your assistance? No, I've been in that position. I've been in that situation before where I needed assistance from people and people wouldn't assist me, you know. And I know what it's like, and I'm never the one that's that's non-assistive, and I'm not going to be the one that says, well, because people didn't assist me that time, I'm not assisting no one either. No, this is what they want you to do, is to conform to their ways. And again, justice for those that want you to conform to their wicked ways is you being one that is a non-conformist. That is justice for them. That's justice for them. A person that can't conform, people that can't conform to wickedness is justice. That's the only way that you can serve justice to a people that are wicked, that want you to be wicked is to not be wicked just like them. If the world wake up tomorrow and everybody in the world is righteous, everybody get along, everybody love everybody, then those that love division would be, disgruntled. They would be broken. That would destroy them. They would hate that. They would have to conform to you. That would be justice for them. Justice for those people that their Epstein this and Epstein that is turn away from them. They don't care. They care about you losing interest. That's what they care about. They care more about you losing interest than they care about, you know, going to jail or going to any kind of or suffering any kind of penalties for their action. These things been going on for centuries. Now, what happens when they wake up and that is no more? That's Babylon is over with. I can't believe it. That's how Babylon is over with. And we do have people that that keep certain things going. That keep certain things going, like Esau and Jacob. They're saying that Esau is about to come to an end now, yeah, and that they believe that that is a particular race of people that are going to get their just due for their mistreatment of other people for XYZ amount of time, and that's not the case. That's not the case. That is kind of like falsehood. That is falsehood. You know, but yeah, that was just something that you wanted to show people, about that. That, that guy, I could have been like, aha, you was talking junk to me and look, you fell on your face, aha. No, I'm going to go over there and be assistive to my fellow human. Pick him up, you know, and make sure that he's okay. Get him over here, and sit him down. Get him from off his face and sit him down. Give him legs. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's cameras all over the place, and when these people are spies and watching you this place and that place, they see all sorts of wonders that you do. And you don't assume credit for that. That's the spirit of God in you that does that. So when you want to see God, it has to come through the people that are of God, those that are true children of God, that represent God in a way that um, God needs to be represented. See, for me, I'm I'm one that I like to play video games. I got all sorts of video games all over the place. I'm a jocular person. I like to have fun. I'm laughing at everything, and but when it comes to the truth, I'm dead serious about the truth. And sometimes your word is a double-edged sword. Sometimes what I say, may come off, offensive to you, and it's offensive to me as well because I have to be the one that, you know, have to say it. So don't look at a person as that's just the way they are, and this is he just stern and don't have fun. I have fun. I like to watch, Seinfeld, and every it don't matter how many times I seen the same episode, I'm still Yo, George is crazy, man. Look at David Putty. You know what I mean? So I'm not just, I can't come, and say certain things any other kind of way than it needs to be said. You have to be serious about, you know, your representation of you know of God. You have to be. This is something that you really can't play with because it's not a joking matter. This is something that, especially when you see the world is in turmoil, or you see that people needs um, guidance when they're being shepherded by false shepherds. When they're being shepherded by false shepherds. Shepherd, a false shepherd. A false shepherd is typically a religious leader, typically, but it could be a hip hop artist, it could be a actor, an entertainer, an activist, but they're, typically leader who exploits, neglects, or mislead their followers for personal gain, power, or selfish motives. This can be an online influencer that has to tell you certain things because it's for personal gain, it's for power, or it's for selfish motives. So yeah, I'm gonna tell you to be selfish because if you don't have, then how you gonna have for everybody else? I didn't I didn't have, but I still made myself available, and you do that, like it's as easy as drinking water. You make yourself available, you know, to those in need, you know, and you don't want to be self-serving. That comes with selfishness. And then we go back to, the biblical definition of selfishness. What does the Bible say about selfishness? In James 3, verse 16, for where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder in every vile practice. So this comes from selfishness and jealousy and selfish ambition. This is disorder, disorder and every vile practice. First Corinthians chapter 10, verse 24. No one should seek their own good, but the good of others. Contrary to what Source Walker stated. Then you have First John chapter 3 verse 17. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need but has no pity on them, how can you love God? How can the love of God be in that person? How can the love of God be in you but you see that person over there sprawled out on the floor? And you're just going to walk by that person. You're just going to drive by that person. You're not even going to stop and say, hey, buddy, you all right? You all right? All right now. Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get locked up out here. Go somewhere, and if you sober, you drunk, sober up somewhere. How can you do that? And you know you don't do that, but God is in you. So it's not that those people don't know how to represent God, because the people that's representing God aren't representing God. So if this was a norm, that would be the norm of people. The norm of people would be to be assistive of people. No, that's what we got these people for. That's what we got first responders for. That's what we got, the EMS for. That's what we got fire department. That's what we got cops for. No. What about you? What about you as an individual part of the collective? You don't care nothing about the collective where, everybody is somebody. Nobody is nobody. That means that nobody is nobody. Everybody is somebody. Everybody. That's why when people comment on my page, they are somebody. That's the celebrities. They can influence a video. They can influence, dialogue. They can. There's people that, are in, the comment sections on anything that I post that are somebody. They're somebody. So we have to establish that, as a people, that everybody that's you see is somebody. Where there's celebrities, they don't look at you like they look at you like you're nobody. Let's see when little baby, let's see when little baby told the guy, "Don't ever touch me." Look, whoever he said, hey. Nobody want to see this. Hey, I'm leaving. Whoever he said, yeah, look, him right here. Him. Whoever he said.
Yo, baby, yo, can you get some to the kingdom of Cooch, man?
Ever touch me in your life. Don't ever touch me in your life. All right, what you want me to say?
Don't ever touch me in your life. Don't ever touch me. Because he's somebody now. Let's see. baby. Let's see if we can get a. Let's see if we can get a video. Let's see if we get a picture of it. You know what I mean, huh, huh, look. You know what I mean, it's not who can't touch him. You know what I mean? It's not who can't touch him, just you can't. Because you're beneath me. You're nobody. Don't you ever touch me in your life. Don't ever touch me. You know? You know? But y'all probably the same way. You know what I mean? But me, I wouldn't mind. I'm not that I'm not that self-centered or that egotistical where I would tell somebody don't touch me. Like I told you before, I've been in the store with him and I'm about as I mean as like this. And I'm like, son, I'm like a giant to y'all. You know what I mean? Not just that you're bigger than them, but son, I don't feel no spiritual greatness or you know what I mean that you would feel like when you see somebody of splendor, you know, like oh, I'm in the presence of you know a divine being. I felt nothing. I'm being honest. I felt nothing. I felt as though they should have turned to me like, yeah, what are you getting? Oh no, I'm just getting this little piece right here. Can can I please pay for that for you? You little baby, you want to sure, man. You could get it, bro. And then when people be like, "Yoshi, I like that. Where you get that from?" You know what? I was in Jewelry Unlimited, and it was little baby in there, and I was just about to buy this, and little baby just turned around and said, "Hey, can I buy that for you?" You know, and that would have went on his record. Now, I mean, that would have been accredited to little baby you know? And that would have been kind of something that would have been sacred to me. Like, nah, I can't get this little baby on. You know what I mean? And every time I saw little baby, I would have been like, yo, there go a people, man, little baby, bro. Matter of fact, you know what? You see this right here? Little baby had bought this. I got all rid of all my other jewelry, but see, little baby had bought this for me, and I can't really get rid of it because it has sentimental value. But nah, I felt like a giant to them people in there, man. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, because of my spiritual awareness. I'm not sure what his spiritual awareness was, but because of who I felt as though I am, I'm not sure who they felt as though they was. But it's just me being God honest with y'all, man. I was in there with them and I didn't, you know what I mean, feel anything. But that's just you showing, you're not judging, you're using righteous judgment. You know what I mean? Somebody tapped him I mean, and he made it clear that, you don't touch me. You fan, you who like my music, who make me who I am. You don't ever touch me. You know what I mean? So that's what I wanted to, share. And then we did have, when I made that video the other day, I told you that they all got um, people talking about um, Ti and what's this guy name? 50 Cent. And I told you that Cuz was gonna come out. I mean, I told you that Cuz was going to make a video about that. And I mean, these are false shepherds. I mean, people with an opinion that shouldn't have opinion. We have preachers in a position to preach that I mean shouldn't be preaching. We got teachers in a position to teach that shouldn't be teaching. We got those that I mean are leaders in a position of leadership that's leading that shouldn't be leading. I mean, and why? Because he has an input on people that he stated himself that he hate. I mean, from out of the heart, the mouth speak. I mean, and then you do have Cuz here telling you himself.
You embarrassing. You weak.
You know what I mean? This is what he think of black people. I mean, so why should you have an input about black people when this is how you feel about black people? You understand? This is how you feel about black people.
You weak. What you telling me? Oh, you ain't black. Like it's something to be proud of. Nigga, you live up under the feet of white supremacy.
This is how we feel about black people. You understand? This is what he feel. And we'll just bring it back.
Told you I was Dominican. Stop with that, or you get blocked. Stop with that, or you get blocked. Because one thing about it, I hate when people sit up there and say, you not black, nigga. I don't want to be black. You niggas is disgusting. You embarrassing. You weak. You weak. What you telling me? Oh, you ain't black. Like it's something to be proud of. Nigga, you live up under the feet of white supremacy.
You know,
Always crying.
this is what he feel about black people. So why should you have an input on anything that has something to do with black people? You understand? And I'm gonna apologize for him, for disrespecting people that may have been misled or been under the impression that this is the way to conduct myself because of years and years and years of being subjected to certain things and believe that that's the only way certain things are, when it's really not. There's different ways to be. Like with me, I don't consider myself black, not because black people are beneath me. I don't consider myself black because I've colonized myself. I've unconditioned myself. I unallowed myself to be a certain way from understanding my connection to God. So as you coming from God, you understand that, son, I can't be something that other people made me. I have to be what God made me. What did God made me? God made me a being of life. I'm life because God is the creator of life. He didn't tell me that I had to be from a particular region. God didn't tell me that I have to be a certain color. I have to be in a certain religion. No, you're a being of life. So don't let anybody dictate to you, other than if you do, then you're not that. You know what I mean? You're a synthetic form of who you are. You're not really you. You're something else. So you change a name. You don't change a name to something else, to another people that colonize people. You don't change a name to a Muslim name. You don't change a name to a Spanish name. You don't change a name to a French name. You don't change a name to an African name. What name should I change myself to? I could create a name. But Japanese people didn't have anything to do with the destruction of people, especially my people. So I'm going to choose a whole Japanese name. So I have a whole Japanese name. Why? Because Japanese people didn't do anything to my people. I don't have no problems with Japanese people. Never did. So you chose that. And inside of that, you unbeknownst to the name that you chose Yoshi. And what Yoshi means is righteousness. And we are to seek the righteousness of God and, the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all other things will be added to you. So, you change your name to Yoshi, and that means righteous. That means good. Without you even knowing that. Why would you choose Yoshi out of all names? That's not a cool name. Why is that such a name that you choose for yourself? Told me, son, you know what I mean? It was laid on me to change my name. So I changed it. So that's why I'm not one that, disrespects, people because, I disagree with the way that, you know, things have been done and conducted. You be um, a teacher of what needs to be taught and be a beacon of light to those that are in dark places. Don't be the one that's going to kick them while they're down. And once they're down and you're in a high place, you look down, you look high and look down low on them. So, that's just something that you acknowledge, because you did see that right after you stated that, Cuz was going to come out, with his little input about T.I. family mops the floor with 50 Cent. This is what's common online. Again, teachers being false teachers placed in positions of real teachers, false leaders placed in a position of real leaders, false preachers being placed in the position of real preachers. So that's why things are the way that they are. That's why things are what they are. So just in case you wanted to understand that. And again, what I mean? We did have, that. But again, it's for those that's to keep producing a reality for you, to keep you looped in the reality. You know what I mean? Because they are shepherds. They are sheep herding you into this reality, because as you try to escape, they push you. No, oh, no, you don't. What about this over here? Let's talk about this over here, and let me keep you boxed in over here. No, no, you don't. Nope, where you going? So those are the ones that's targeted for their inability to be a certain way. Those people are but we have to understand, bro. It's crazy. It's crazy. But if y'all want to go and check the how how Felicia feels and talk about it, then that's a suggestion to add on, and that would spark other things. It may spark another video, or some more input from her to give some of her input and wisdom, but this ain't always about being self-centered. It's about others and how others feel, and if you can't relate to how others feel, then you're in no position to even um, um, cast an opinion about others. Because if you simply don't relate to them, then you have no input to even say about them. Like your boy stated, you shouldn't have nothing to say about anybody black. You know what I mean? Or any Afro Americans, or any people of what you want to call colored, or whatever they want to call, whatever you want to call them. But as far as me, I wouldn't say that about them at all. About especially your own people, especially when that's where you come from. But just felt like sharing that.